Yo, what's going on, guys? It's J-Mass, back again with another New England adventure. And today I got one of the most obscure historical footnotes to show you guys. So I'm deep in the woods right now of Sudbury, Massachusetts, and I'm heading to a really bizarre location. So this is a place that wasn't actually founded by someone from Massachusetts, but rather a famous Michigander, Henry Ford. Now you probably know who Henry Ford is. He was the inventor of the assembly line. He was the founder of the Ford Motor Company. He was really big around the Detroit, Michigan area and really revolutionized Detroit into the automobile powerhouse that it not so much is today, but used to be in the 20th century. Now, not many people know this, but Henry Ford actually planned on doing some activity here in Massachusetts, specifically in the town of Sudbury. In 1923, Henry Ford actually purchased a large swath of land in Sudbury, and I'm actually currently walking on the former property of his. Now, he bought a bunch of stuff in Sudbury. He bought the Wayside Inn, which was a famous colonial inn. He bought the Martha Mary Chapel, a famous non-denominational Christian church. And he also bought this plot of forest that I'm currently in, where he had grand plans to build a massive colonial town. Now, I'll tell you guys a little bit more about it as I go on, but we're going to be checking out what is commonly known as Ford's Folly, Henry Ford's failed plan to build a massive industrial village in the center of Massachusetts. So when Henry Ford first traveled to Sudbury in 1923 to purchase this land, he had very specific plans in mind. Now, he wanted to build a village that was specifically inspired by the colonial villages of the 1600s and 1700s, specifically in New England. He wanted to make a village that was inspired by his colonial forefathers, and it would specifically harken back to the works of Henry Wadsworth Longfellow and other famous literary writers of the era. Now, the reason he chose Sudbury was because it is a historic colonial village in Massachusetts, and the land he chose encompassed many of these famous historic colonial buildings. Now, when he chose this land, there was one specific thing he had to do. There was a river or a small creek that leaked from the side of a mountain. It pooled into this forest, and he wanted to turn into a reservoir, a big area of water that would collect. So in order to artificially create this reservoir, he had to make a dam. Now, as you can tell from where I'm walking, this is a pretty dense forest. Really no major bodies of water here. I haven't seen any, you know what I mean? There's no water other than that creek. Now, Henry Ford knew this, and in preparation to create his reservoir, he built a giant stone dam in the middle of the forest. No water, nothing. He built a giant stone dam in preparation for what he wanted to make a future reservoir. And I'll show you right now because it's crazy. And as we make our way through this dense forest, you'll notice that all of a sudden, out of absolutely nowhere, we stumble upon this massive dam. Now, the thing that really baffles me about this dam is that it's really just not that known in the area. Even in Sudbury itself, not many people seem to know about it, which baffles me because it's such an interesting and just bizarre historical footnote, you know what I mean? Like, Henry Ford and his associates built this thing with the hopes of creating a massive colonial-inspired village. It's crazy. I mean, Henry Ford, the guy who's, in our modern times mythologized as jump-starting the automobile industry. That guy created this dam in the hopes of making a huge village in the middle of central Massachusetts, and it just never came to fruition. Now, the reason this place is called Ford's Folly, and if you don't know what folly means, it basically means foolishness, is because it's supposed to represent his failures to do so. Now, if you're wondering, what water does this dam actually hold? Why don't I let the scenery do the talking? I don't know, do you guys see any water? Because I don't. You know what I mean? So this dam doesn't hold any water. It's a dam in the middle of the forest, in the middle of the town of Sudbury, holding no water. And that's really the essence of Ford's Folly. It's just a historical footnote that doesn't really do anything, but it's just so interesting to know the background of it. Now, we're going to go down here in a second and check it out. There are some cool things we can explore. Those include a couple abandoned cars, a little cave. It's pretty interesting. But this is the top of Ford's Folly, the dam that never was. And although it's pretty obvious to tell that this dam never lived up to its purpose, seeing that it's completely abandoned and holds no water today, it's not that it was necessarily abandoned right away by Henry Ford. One of his associates, John Campbell, actually really tried hard to make this dam, come alive and serve its purpose. Between 1930 and I believe 1946, Campbell worked really hard to get this dam going, but he just couldn't do it. And the reason is because this sits upon a type of rock called incompetent bedrock, which basically means it's really weak and porous rock, and water can seep through. So no matter what they tried to do, this dam just could not hold water, and water would always find a way to seep through it, making this probably the most useless dam in history. And again, I just want to mention this is in the middle of the woods, and it holds no water. It's just a random stone wall. So we're going to go up to it, and there's some pretty cool things we can check out. As I mentioned, there are a few abandoned cars at the bottom, and here's one of them. The reason these are here is because I think in the 1960s, I want to say 1960s and 70s, teenagers used to chuck cars down here from the very top of this dam all the way down here. Now this is one of these abandoned cars. You can see it's just completely decimated. I mean, a tree clearly fell on top of it. Which I want to say, I was here last summer and that tree was not there, so something happened recently. Now, this is the creek itself. I believe it's called Hop Brook. Obviously, it's not that big, it's not that wide, it's just a small little creek. But Henry Ford's plan was to flood this area and create a reservoir. Again, though, because of the incompetent bedrock that caused water to seep through no matter what, it was just failed to begin with. And as we make our way over to this little opening, we can take a look and peer inside of the unfinished dam. Whoa. Giant frog. Holy shit, that scared me. Okay, but this is the inside of the dam. Obviously not that much in here. You got a little, some sort of wheel right there. I don't really know what the purpose of that was. That guy's just chilling. But you can see it's kind of flooded a bit with water. Really not much in here, but pretty cool to check out. And again, this is the wall itself. The dam at Ford's Folly. I will say, even though it obviously doesn't hold any water and is kind of useless, it's just really cool to see. Another thing I want to say about this wall is that even though it was built in the 1920s, it wasn't built using, industrial machinery, like huge construction vehicles and equipment. They weren't used. Since Henry Ford wanted to build this in a very colonial style, since the whole point was to harken back to his forefathers, it was actually built using manpower and oxen. That's it. No construction equipment, no industrial materials, just humans and oxen. Now, the oxen would carry these huge pieces of stone down here, and they would be lifted with pulleys and levers and brought down and placed by man. So, I will say, that's a pretty cool feat to build this. And again, you got that car right here. I believe there was another car. I just don't exactly know where it is right now, but pretty crazy stuff. Okay, and this right here is the other side of the dam. Sorry if it's a bit sunny, but this is the other side of the dam. So, as you can see, the main difference is that it's a little bit curved at the top. I just want to stress that I don't actually know which side was supposed to hold the water. I believe it was the other side, but I could be wrong. Because I will say this side's a lot more wet. you know, there's lots of mud and a little bit of water that's collecting. So it could have been this side. I just think it was the other side because that's where the brook is. But again, I could be wrong. But nonetheless, this is the other side of the dam. Pretty crazy. Again, it's not holding any water. I mean, the most it's holding is that tiny series of puddles. That's really it. It really is just a crazy marvel of, well, 20th century engineering failures. And it's pretty much been abandoned since the 1940s, untouched, unused. And as I said, it's a pretty obscure Massachusetts attraction nowadays. Very few people know about it. Obviously, Henry Ford is more known for his work in Michigan. When he pretty much abandoned this project, he focused on the town of Dearborn, Michigan, and also Detroit. So Michigan really became the automotive center of America because of him. But it is kind of interesting to think if there would have been a parallel universe where, I don't know, maybe Massachusetts would have became an automobile manufacturing center. Who knows? And guys, that was Ford's Folly in Sudbury, Massachusetts. One of the most obscure pieces of history in New England. To think that Henry Ford had grand plans to build a huge colonial-inspired industrial village here, it really boggles my mind. Especially knowing that I'm standing atop a dam that literally serves no purpose. It's pretty crazy, right in the middle of the woods. You can hike to it, it's not a long hike. It takes you like maybe 15 minutes to get here from the parking lot. Not bad. I would highly recommend checking out Ford's Folly, especially if you like weird history. It's really cool to see. Thanks again for joining me, guys. This has been another New England adventure, Ford's Folly in Sudbury. Now, I've been J-Mass, and I plan on coming out with more stuff like this in the future. Thanks for joining me. I'll catch you guys on the next one. See ya. Damn! All right, I'm really sorry I had to do that.